Hello and welcome to episode 9 of Roadkill Entertainment's Video Village. Hi, I'm Jay Byrne, and this is episode 9. I'm going to do something a little different for this episode. I'm going to, it's been about, 3 years since I started making my first official feature-length film, a movie called Hometown. And, whether you've seen it or whether you haven't seen it, that's not really like the issue. I'm going to kind of come at this from an independent filmmaking, almost like a weird sort of seminar, like where I'm just going to, tell you my experiences as honestly as I possibly can. There's a few stories that I've kind of held off, for this purpose so that I could actually tell like a full version of the story and be honest with it. So this is going to be a kind of like another no holds barred, like indie filmmaking. We did indie filmmaking 101 when we did the Diamond Camp film episode. So this is indie filmmaking 102, revisiting Hometown, basically. My first real feature film and how that happened. Because I know a lot of, young and independent filmmakers are always wondering like how things get made, because I see so much stuff on Facebook and whatnot, other people that I know, other filmmakers and stuff, trying to get their short films made and everything made, and it's always about money and getting your crew and getting all your and this and that, and yeah, that is one way to do it like the film school way, basically. To get it done that way, to come up with money and all that kind of stuff, and hire the best possible crew and stuff. But what if you don't have any money? What if you really want to make a film, but you don't have any money? And a lot of people are going to look at you and say, well, you can't make a movie. That's not true. You're going to need a little bit of money because you're going to need a camera. You're going to need, editing software. But if you wanted to say do it 100% yourself, how would you go about doing that? And that's kind of the way that I'm going to do this episode. I'm not going to do any reviews or anything this episode, because I'm going to let this be the main topic of the episode. There isn't going to be an episode at the beginning of next month. I'll have another episode around the middle of next month, which will be like the review episode, because there just isn't really anything scheduled. I don't have this month has just gone by so quickly that that I haven't had a chance to really work out any guests or anything like that for the next episode, unless I come up with something on the fly. But as of right now, there isn't going to be an episode at the beginning of the month coming up. This is going to be like the episode. I'm going to try to keep this one going for a little while, and then the middle of next month, I'm going to do like a supersized review episode, where that's going to be the whole episode. It's going to be like Blu-ray reviews, because I've been picking up a lot of stuff, and I got to figure out what I haven't reviewed and what I have reviewed. But I think I have a nice stack of stuff to talk about. So yeah, so that's that. Plus, I'm also recording this late at night. So if you hear me kind of talking quietly, like I'm talking a little lower, that's the reason why. Because it's, about 10 o'clock at night. So anyway, all right, so how do I start this whole thing? How did it all begin, so to speak? We can start from the script stage, all right? Let's go all the way back to the beginning. The script for my very first film, Hometown, it's technically my third film. I made a documentary before it, which I always considered a big deal, like when I was making it, and it is a big deal. It's a pretty cool document of the time period, a documentary called The Final Episode. But I feel like Hometown was the first real movie that I made. Okay, so the script was based on a story that I wrote in high school. So this shows you that, maybe I'm getting a little confused with my pattern here, how I'm going to tell this story. So, all right, I'll start with the crazy story, which I've kind of held back on for a while now. We, for the past couple of years, we've been going to this, it's like a horror film convention. It's called Rock and Shock. And we've actually gotten our films into it, Hometown and You Better Watch Out, have screened there during the film festival. But we went there. It would have been 2010, maybe. I can't remember the exact year, but I think it would have been around 2010. If not, it was 2000. That was the year that we went there. Because if I started shooting, yeah, it would have been around. It would have been in 2010. So, 2010, we went there, and we were just going around checking out all the different panel discussions and stuff like that. And as a matter of fact, it was a panel discussion on Rob Zombie's Halloween. It had a bunch of different people. They had, I don't remember if it was Dee Wallace. They had a couple different people there on that panel. It was Dee Wallace, I think. It was Dee Wallace and Danielle Harris and a couple other people. Scout Taylor Compton, I think is her name. And she was there. And they also had Eileen Dietz, who, if you're familiar with her, she was the woman who played she was the double for Linda Blair in the original Exorcist movie. So she was the one that you saw getting beat up the most. Like, because there were times that they couldn't have Linda Blair because of her age. And there was some stuff that, they were a little afraid to put her through. So there are tons of theories about William Friedkin as a director. He's supposedly a little bit nutty, and he used to fire off guns on the set and stuff like that. And so, I raised my hand to ask this woman a question, and people had been kind of not really talking to her. They've been talking to everybody else. And I said, my question is for Eileen Dietz, and I wanted to ask her, are all the crazy stories about working with William Friedkin true? Because, as the years go by, you wonder what has been exaggerated and what hasn't been. And she basically answered that, yes, they are all true. And, that he did fire off guns on the set, that he was kind of a crazy, like, tyrannical director when they made that movie, like a dictator on the set. So I asked that question, and it got a good response, and we left the panel discussion, and we were just walking around, me and my wife, Katie, shopping, doing whatever, going to get some food, and this guy walks up to me and taps me on the shoulder. And he says, "Oh, hey, how you doing?" I'm like, "Hi." I'm kind of, off put because I'm not an unsocial person, but I'm not a big, just randomly talk to people in public type of person. And he says to me, he says, "Oh, I just wanted to let you know I really liked the question that you asked and this and that." And I'm like, "Oh, that's awesome. Great. Thank you. Cool. Whatever." And we started talking about horror movies, and he seemed like a pretty cool guy, like down to earth, kind of normal, like a little high strung. He was kind of like following us around that day. But you know what? We were becoming friends to a certain degree because we were, talking and stuff like that. So it wasn't the biggest deal. And he kind of hung around with me and Katie for a while. And we went and we had our lunch, and he sat with us and talked to us. And we had some other stuff that we wanted to do. And he kept running into us throughout the day. And earlier, that was the first time I had ever met David Hess. And I've told the stories about David Hess before, about how we met him through another friend. And we actually went up to him, and I was nervous to meet him. And when I told him who I was, he was like, "Oh my God, you're Jay Byrne. I know Liza. You're Jay and Katie." And he gets up and he, gives us a hug, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry I couldn't be at your wedding." And not, this is not really the part of the story, the point of the story, but the point is this guy who I met there at the convention was standing behind us during that whole time, and he was getting pissed because he was like, "Who are these people?" And he just wanted to get his stuff signed by David Hess. And he's like, so I think right off the bat there, he kind of, I don't know if he felt that maybe, there was more to us than meet the eye. I told him I had my own, I was trying to do wedding videos and stuff like that. And I had my own company that was called Blockhead Productions, which I still technically have. I don't really get much work doing it, but I haven't had work doing it in a long time, actually. So, but I ended up telling him that, and at some point during the day, after all is said and done, and we were talking all day and getting along pretty well, he says, well, I got this script and I want to make a movie. I'm like, okay. So let's hook up. Give me a call. Let me know. I mean, maybe we can make this work. And I'm like, that's not such a crazy idea. I mean, I was kind of looking for, my strong suits aren't in the writing, and I'm getting better at it, but my strong suits weren't in the writing at the time. And I just decided that I wanted to, I'm like, okay, this isn't such a crazy idea. I mean, if I have a script, I mean, I would be all for like filming, directing, and editing, like what I normally do, but just having the material, somebody giving me the material to work with, because, as long as it's something that I liked, I could work with it. So when we left, I literally said to my wife, I asked her, I said, should I call this guy? Because I'm skeptical about just people that I barely know. And I said, all right, well, and she's like, yeah, you should. He seems like a pretty cool guy, and it could be a opportunity. And that's what it felt like at the moment. So I ended up calling him. And he was, I don't think he was that surprised to hear from me. He was like, oh, hey, what's up? How you doing? And we got to talking, and, we sort of built a friendship over the next few months, talking constantly on the phone. It became a little obsessive, though, because, literally we were talking constantly on the phone. It was like every day, all the time. And we were working out the details for the script. And he got me his script, and I really liked his script. And we started working on, I put a teaser poster together, and he started working on casting. And he went to this website called Model Mayhem and cast the movie. We had a cast. We had a good portion of our cast in place. And this is over a course of a couple of months of constantly working on this. And so what it boiled down to was his friend had an HD camera. And we're like, oh, wow, awesome, we'll shoot with the HD camera. He had told his boss at work, and I guess he worked in a place where he made good money and stuff like that, and they were willing to give us some money to do 35 millimeter. They wanted to shoot on film. I told him flat out, I said, listen, I don't know how to deal with film. So he was really excited. He's like, oh my God, should we do it? I'm like, maybe that's not such the smartest idea. And I had to kind of talk him down out of it. I'm like, do you really want to get yourself in that deep? And now, looking back on it, I'm very glad we didn't get into that kind of money situation. I said, let's just do this on our own. That's the way I'm used to doing things. It's going to be low budget. It's not going to be, whatever. And he initially told me, he said, as long as I can show my movie at Rock and Shock, the film festival, I'll be happy. Which, oddly enough, we, in the ensuing years, got our films into it. But then we basically... we scheduled like our first shoot, like a test shoot type of a thing. And we got everybody together, and we shot the opening of the movie. It was supposed to be the first shoot in the movie. And there was a handful of people involved. We had like a set designer and all kinds of stuff. And him and his friends started acting like producers. And, we needed to have this, we needed to have that, we needed to have this, which was fine. That was okay by me. I was ready to go. I was ready to do it. And we shot that day, and everything seemed pretty good. He was acting a little bit crazy, getting a little bit diva-esque. The biggest problem was that he was too attached to his script. Like, there were changes that needed to be made. No, I'm not talking about major changes or anything like that, but there were things that I felt needed to be adjusted. Plus, I also just wanted to make it mine a little bit, because I was supposed to be the director. I was hired as the director. And I felt, and we had gotten together like once, and I had met him, and, we hung out and stuff, and I was filming like this video diary about the making of the whole thing. And I felt that like the whole process was going along relatively smoothly, but there was just this weird undercurrent to the whole thing. Like I started feeling like I was dealing with I felt like I was in a relationship, like with another woman, like a female, really. Like, you know what I mean? Like it was starting to get very, very strange. So at that point, we got together, we shot that day. And like I said, this guy who wrote the script, he was also playing the lead role in the film, which oddly enough in the script, the lead role is an obsessive compulsive character who stalks like this horror film actress at a convention, which is kind of creepy if you think about it. But, I'm not making any judgments on that. The script was actually kind of cool. I liked it. I enjoyed it. So we filmed our first scene. We did it. I came home. I cut the whole thing. I sent them the file, they via the internet, and they checked it out, and it was a little rough. It needed some finessing here and there. The sound was kind of rough. We had a hard time recording sound that day. So basically, I get this call. They call me up and they're like, we're not really sure. Now, this is like the committee that calls me up, because him and his friend was supposed to be a producer on the movie, and they were all acting like producers. And he's like, we're not really sure if we're happy with how it came out, and we think we should reshoot that. And right then and there, it just clicked in my brain. I'm like, this is the first shoot that we did on the movie, and they already wanted to reshoot this. I'm like, I've been making stuff independently for a long time, and I'm like, this is never going to get finished. We had an 85-page script. I mean, it was a long script, and it was a big schedule and all this stuff. And I told him, I said, I'm okay with fixing that, but we're not going to do this every single time this happens. We can't keep reshooting things over and over and over again. I mean, we'll never get through this movie. And we're not making no Oscar-winning movie. We're making a B movie, plain and simple. And they had lofty ambitions for this. They wanted it to be more. But none of them were saying, like, you know what? We don't like what you're doing. I think we're going to go another route and bring somebody else in. Because at that point, I would have been like, you know what? Whatever. Okay. I'd kind of gotten some bad vibes going on about this whole project anyway. So I was like, whatever. And then people started like insulting my work, and it turned into like a screaming match on the phone. This was really weird. And like it was like I was talking to a jealous girlfriend, and people were yelling and screaming at each other. And, it got a little crazy, it ended very heated that night on the phone. And I remember like having a long conversation with my wife and saying, I'm a grown man. I don't need to be yelled at by like 20-year-olds, you know what I mean? That are trying to do this, and to, I respect what they're doing. I totally do. But it was just getting really, really out of hand. So basically where it ended up from there was, it just blew up, and I ended up calling him back, and I talked to my wife. I was like, maybe this isn't the right fit for me. Maybe I shouldn't be a part of this. I mean, we've only shot one day. We've got a little bit of organization going on. It's not the end of the world. No big deal. And a couple times I had almost tried to back out of the project while I was dealing with this guy. But, he talked me into staying. I called him back. I said, you know what? I'm out. I can't do this. And then, it all hell broke loose. It turned into a real screaming match. And this is, we're supposed to be adults here. And this is how, and I said to him, I said, listen, I am not taking your movie away from you or anything like that. This is yours. Continue with it. Do something with it. And, this kid started calling me on the phone, crying, freaking out. I'm like, okay, this is really weird. I'm like dealing with it. Felt like I was dealing with like a jaded lover or something. It got creepy. It got kind of scary. And so then I had to go back and return the camera, because I had this producer kid's camera, the HD camera. I went up there. They were all kind of waiting, almost like an intervention, to kind of like approach me on it. And I stuck to my guns. I bowed out. I bowed out of the project. And I didn't think I was being that horrible a person. I told him, I said, hey, listen, you got a good script. You've got a crew, you've got actors, just find somebody to shoot. You've got the camera, you've got everything. You don't need me. Apparently, I wasn't good enough for them anyway. They didn't want what I was doing. So I left, and I kept getting calls from this guy and crying on the phone, and I literally blocked his phone number. I tried to be like cool about it. I really did. But like it wouldn't end. It wouldn't stop. And I needed to cut ties. It just needed to get cut off, because I was obviously dealing with the type of person that needed to control everything that they were doing. So that just got really weird and really creepy. And I I just didn't want to be a part of that anymore. And like I said, I'm a grown man. I've done this before on my own. I mean, on smaller levels with short films and stuff. So I decided at that point that when I came back, I'm like, I was really, really depressed. I was like bummed out. I'm like, I want to make a movie still. Like I had no money. I had no to make a movie or anything like that. I had a computer with editing software. That was it. I didn't even really have cameras at that point. I had a couple of small mini DV cameras. But I'm like, I want to make a movie, but I needed a better camera to make the movie, like an HD camera. Something that was like, where I could make something that people would actually pay attention to. So at that point, I was like, well, what do I do? And tax time was coming up. So my wife agreed, hey, well, you know what? Let's use the tax money and buy a, inexpensive, like a decent prosumer DV camera, HD camera. And then you can just do your own thing. I was like, okay. So at that point, I was trying to come up with a project idea. I pulled out a script that I had written literally just out of high school. It was called Something to Turn Your Stomach. And I polished up the script and I changed the title of it to Hometown because it kind of fit the movie and it was a better title than Something to Turn Your Stomach. And then, all that stuff with the script and everything, I got the camera. And then I contacted my friends and I'm like, do you guys want to be in a film? Because we had done a lot of short films together. And I'm like, I really want to make a movie. And the funny part about it was I had said this to people a few times and we had started making short films and stuff like that. And I don't think people really were like believing me. I don't think they really believed that I wanted to make a movie, like a real movie, like a full feature length film. I think they kind of thought, well, it's just going to be another short. It's not going to turn out to be anything complete. And, I organized my friends. Initially speaking, one of my very, very close friends who played like a lead female character, Liza, in the film. I mean, she's a great person. I love her. She's awesome. But her life was just too crazy and hectic. She had like a personal crisis going on at the time that was really taking over her mind and her life. And she was going through a period of depression in her life as well. And, she liked doing the film, but I could tell that she just didn't have the time to do it. It was never going to get finished because we kept scheduling and rescheduling shoots and stuff like that. So originally she was going to play the main character in all three stories, but I decided, well, you know what? It isn't going to work out this way. Plus it kind of made more sense on our budget to have different characters in each story because, it would have been too creepy. It would have been like too low budget looking. Like we wouldn't have been good enough at making the characters look different enough. It was supposed to be like a Karen Black thing, like a trilogy of terror. So, I rewrote the middle story. I worked it out. I mean, things got a little bit crazy, but yeah. And then we, scheduled the shoots. It took about a year to film the movie, and during that year, a lot happened. I'll tell you. I mean, we were financing the movie 100% on our own. I mean, it's like if we needed a prop, if we needed a thing, most people provided their own costuming. But if I needed a prop, if I needed something, I had to come up with it on my own. I was doing everything. I was doing the effects. I was scheduling. There was a million things that I was doing. And we finished the first story. And I decided, I really wanted to, I needed some money somehow to make this thing. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to continue it unless I, made a few bucks to do stuff. I needed a Blu-ray drive so I could burn out the HD files from the computer because I had HD camera, but I couldn't really do anything with the HD files. They were all just in the computer. And anybody who's worked with HD, actually, we shot the movie for low budget. The camera cost me $1,500, and it's a Sony AVC HD camera. It's a U50 or something like that. I can't remember the exact model of it off the top of my head. I always do, and now of course I can't remember, but HX U50 or something. And it shoots in the format AVC HD, which it shot on a flash memory that was in the camera. Well, you can also put flash cards in it, like memory cards in it. And it shot on that card in the camera, and it was like 65 gig, and you could record a lot of footage at high quality. And it had a built-in, like a professional boom mic on the camera. It's actually the mic that I'm using to record this podcast right now. And it was just, connected to the camera, and I just did things the way that I knew how to do it. I had the camera, I had the editing software. I organized my friends. I shot in friends' houses, and the scheduling was the hardest part. I always say for this type of filmmaking, you want to make sure that people are going to commit. Like, that's the hardest part. I think the smartest way to handle it, looking back on it now, would be to have a few meetings with your general cast and really feel these people out. Do like 1 or 2 meetings and see if they show up to the meetings. Because then if you got somebody who doesn't show up to like your second meeting or something like that, you got to say to yourself, okay, is this person going to show up on the day that I want to shoot? The entire second story of the film was changed because one of the actors that was going to play it it was very hard to schedule this person. He had an illness. Has an illness, and he gets sick a lot, and he couldn't show up. Like, sometimes he would just not show up. But then again, he also drank a lot, and I think that led to some of him not feeling so great half the time. But I mean, that's his own personal business. But so, I mean, I knew it was going to be next to impossible to film this short, and I just didn't think it was going to happen. So I rewrote the second story in the movie to a completely different story. And I actually liked the second story in the movie a lot better than what I had originally written anyway, so it kind of worked out. It was kind of it worked to my benefit. To the film's benefit, actually. But yeah, I mean, the same person, we scheduled, he was going to play a character in the movie. I actually ended up playing a character in the movie by default, because the same person that was going to play this character, the day we scheduled the shoot, I was literally in the car on the way to the shoot. He called and canceled out on the shoot. So I was going there, and I had 2 other actors that I had brought into the movie, which is, I'll get into that in a second. And I was stuck. I was down an actor. I'm like, can I write out this character? And it was impossible. I couldn't make it work. I couldn't figure out a way to write the character out. So basically what I did was like, all right, no, I've done some acting in the short films, I'll act. And unfortunately, that kind of bummed me out a little bit, because I think there would have been a little bit more time and effort put into the shots and the way it was filmed. I had a good plan on how to shoot this thing. But once I was in front of the camera, it was very hard, because everybody around me wasn't as good at operating the camera as me. So it was hard to trust that it would come out okay if somebody else was operating the camera. So I literally had to lock everything down on the tripod, frame every shot. It got a little tricky. That was tough. And I always say now that, like, if you're going to write, direct, edit, do that whole thing, you're going to do. I would sincerely not. I would. I don't know how to say this. I wouldn't suggest putting yourself in a huge role in the movie. If you want to have a cameo or a small little role somewhere, that's fine. But it's very hard to do all that. If you're literally controlling everything yourself, it's very hard to do the acting in front of the camera as well and do all the technical stuff. I mean, I was the light guy. I was the camera operator. I was everything on this movie. I mean, and yeah, maybe it shows. It is low budget, and it's a little claustrophobic because it's a lot of coverage, because that's the way I had to shoot it. I mean, I was dealing with, at the time, non-actors. And to be really honest with you, the style of acting, the way that I would handle it would be I'd feed people their lines. Literally, like I would frame a shot, and I would tell them, okay, say this, and I'd have them say it 3 or 4 times, and then I'd go to the next line. I mean, it was a long, tedious it's kind of a long, tedious process to do it that way. But then I would literally, in the editing, I would try every variation that they gave me until something sounded like it flowed. And thankfully, I was able to make it work more often than not. There were a few places where it's a little stilted, but a second story, I got a guy involved. Well, I'll preface this with, the first story was shot. I decided I needed some money. So I set up this screening, which I ended up paying more money for the screening in the end than, because I had to rent a projector and all kinds of stuff of the first story than I even made. I was selling copies of my short films and my documentary and stuff like that to try to get some money to buy the Blu-ray burner and maybe make some more money towards the film. And of course, you get a lot of people at that point. They're like, I'll give you some money for your film. Yeah, man, let me help you out. Let me do this, blah, blah, blah. And then it never amounts to anything. So you can't really count on everybody. I did Kickstarter. I ended up getting, I think it was like $27, and I never met my goal, so I didn't get the money. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of Kickstarter and Indiegogo. Indiegogo is not so bad because you can get the money. But I say that only do it if you, especially for Indiegogo, if you're definitely planning on finishing the film yourself. Anyway, then whatever money you get is a bonus. Like if you can almost do it without the money from Indiegogo, then it's better because the money that you get will be a bonus and you can do it that way and you can use it. But if you're depending on that money, then maybe it's not such a smart idea to do, because if you get a couple grand, which I've never gotten, you're gonna owe people stuff. I mean, you promise them credits, you promise them copies of the finished movie. If the movie never gets finished, they don't get anything, and that's bad business. That's just a bad way to be. You don't want to be that person. You want to be the person that says, I'm going to do something and actually do it. So anyway, we tried to raise. I tried to raise some money that night, and I met some people actually at a local Newbury comic store. My buddy Mike, who does the podcast with me, who wrote You Better Watch Out with me, and he's in You Better Watch Out. He's also in Hometown. I mean, we've become like really, really good friends. He's one of my closest friends now, and I met him because he was working at a local record store, Newbury Comics. I had read in all the film books and all these books that you just get on how to make independent films that the place to look for actors are, locally owned artistic businesses like record stores and local movie stores. And I mean, all these places have, like, local theaters have like wannabe actors or producers or directors or, working at them, because that's the type of jobs that I wanted to work, that I did work to a certain degree. I mean, we did in the last podcast about the projection and stuff. So I basically, I met him there. I met Mike. Mike was a cool guy. Mike and Jordan actually was the first one. And Keith, there was a guy named Keith that worked there. And the other person that I used from the store was a girl named Missy, who was really cool, who was awesome. She was in Hometown. And she wasn't in You Better Watch Out kind of for scheduling reasons, because her life is kind of busy. But she's an awesome person. And so basically, I gave them a copy of the short film with a cover and everything. And I said, listen, this is what I'm doing. And if you guys want to be involved, let me know. So then, I contacted them back and let them know. And they're like, all right, yeah, okay, let's do this. Because I seemed kind of legit. Like, they had dealt with people in the past that had come in there and, like, with projects, and just it didn't seem like it was going to happen. They knew me because I had gone into the store a lot, and they're like, well, he seems like a pretty cool guy. And I seemed like I had my shit together. So... And I provided them with story 1 of the finished feature. So they were like, oh, well, he can obviously get something done. And they liked what they saw. Because, it came out pretty good, I thought. So then we screened the thing. And like I said, I didn't really make that much money. I kind of made enough money to buy the Blu-ray burner, but technically not, because I put more money into the night So I should have just went out and bought the Blu-ray burner anyway and not even bothered. But it was a fun night. And so then I moved forward on making the rest of the movie. And it got a lot smoother at that point. And this is another little lesson, independent filmmaking. Adapt your script to your surroundings and who you have available. Like, utilize your talent. Like, if you know you've got somebody that's really good at doing this, or this person can do this, rewrite part of the script, man. And don't be so attached to what's on that page. If you're dealing on a super, super, super indie level, like no budget level, like I'm working at, like, don't be so attached to what's on that page. Like, if it's too big to film, rewrite it. Like, if you have a scene that takes place in an airport, for example, it's a dialogue scene between two characters that takes place in an airport. Well, you can't get an airport because you don't have any money. You don't have no way to do it. You figured you were going to go in there and you're going to steal the shot. Well, what do you do then? Well, you know what? You find a friend or your own apartment. You write the scene to take place in your apartment instead. And he invites his friend over and they have a conversation at their apartment. Or maybe if you know a local business owner that'll let you shoot in their business, you do it there instead of the airport. Like, that's the kind of stuff that you need to do. You need to scale it back as much as you possibly can. And I mean, to be really honest, I mean, there was a lot of stuff in that script, The Hometown, that didn't really get shot the way that it was written. I mean, the wraparound story, because it's an anthology horror film, is all over the map. I mean, there's the ending, it got changed so many times because the guy we had playing one of the main characters, it just got hard to schedule him after a while. Well, I mean, we're talking like a year goes by here where, every couple of months I'd be like, well, we're going to shoot for a few days. We're going to shoot for a few days. And it had nothing to do with money. It had to do with scheduling people because everyone had jobs and life. And then, holidays would come up and people were busy and they couldn't do it. So this is the way it works. I mean, it takes some determination, too, to get through this process because this whole time you're like, well, I've got a movie here that's half finished. Excuse me. Am I ever going to finish this? Is it ever going to get done? And it gets kind of freaky and it messes you up and it gets stressful and depressing. I mean, I was having anxiety attacks and all kinds of stuff because I'm like, I need to finish this. Like, I promised people that I was going to finish this. And I felt responsible to the people that I had promised that I was going to do it. Plus, I felt like I had something to prove at that point because of the whole messed up process of the movie before. I'm like, I'm going to do this. I mean, I'm not backing out this time. This is going to get finished. And like I said, I had a lot of people around me who I don't think they ever thought I was really going to finish it. But I'm like, this is going to get done. Like, I am not going to back out on this. This is what I want to do, and I'm going to do it. And so, like I said, I rewrote the second story in the movie, and I ended up with Keith Cooper, who's an awesome actor. I mean, he ended up being like a friggin' find and a half because I mean, he was memorizing pages on the day, and he would go through a whole page. I mean, his character had to talk to a demon on screen, and I couldn't cut away much because it had to stay on him. So there was conversation going back and forth, and he was just nailing it throughout the whole thing. And we decided, well, what are we going to do? We shot it in our apartment. We shot a lot of that movie in our apartment. We shot a good bit of You Better Watch Out in this apartment too. I think I've overused this apartment now, so it can't be used anymore. But we tried to make it look different, and we did the best we can so that it didn't seem like we were shooting in the same location. And honestly, nobody really picks up on that or even points it out, which is, I guess, to our credit, which is cool. But you got to be creative with this stuff. Because, I mean, even with You Better Watch Out, we shot a sequence. It was supposed to be in a hotel room. We're we can't get the hotel room because we don't have the money to do it. So we made it like a safe house, and we hung up black tarp all around the kitchen, and this shot everybody against black walls. So they're in this black void. But I thought it was kind of a cool approach. And the thing is CGI and matte and green screen never occurred to me because I mean, on a certain level, I don't think people can pull it off very well. And the last thing I want is my movie to look like it has bad green screen. I'd rather it look like they're sitting in a room with nothing in it and it's kind of surrealistic and just creepy and strange than have like bad like CGI, bad green screen going on, and people going, okay, that's obviously not where they're supposed to be. I never really understood that, and I think practical sets are always the way to go. Even if it's not exactly what you want it to be, I think it's still better than trying to fake it if you can't do like an amazing job with the green screen. Don't even attempt, because people are just going to laugh at your shit. They're going to look at it and they're going to think it's funny. They're going to be like, okay, this is terrible, like CGI or whatever. But okay, I got a little off there on tangent. But so going back to like the shooting of Hometown, being that this is all about revisiting Hometown and kind of pointing out life lessons, I guess, filmmaking life lessons. I basically just struggled through Hometown. I mean, Hometown was really like a labor of love for me. It was going to get done. And through all the scheduling conflicts and all the craziness, I mean, our last shoot, there's another little thing that happened to us. We scheduled a friend who was going to play, who'd been in a lot of my short films. That's why I wanted these people in the movie. It was kind of like a nice homage to my old short films. We scheduled a friend of ours to play the lead character in the last story. We shot half the story. And then this person, she couldn't do it. For whatever reasons, personal, however, I was frustrated at the time and I was upset at the time, but I got over it eventually. She couldn't do it. And literally we're on the last story of the movie. And at this point, I'm like, I just want to finish this movie. I just want to get it done. I'm so close to the finish line. And she backed out. And I was like, you know what? Well, she didn't even really back out completely. She just kept kind of holding us off. So I basically said, well, you know what? We got to move on with this. And obviously you can't do it. So let's move on. And, to my buddy Mike's credit, his sister had been a really big supporter of the movie. And I'm like, well, you know what? Does she want to be in the movie? Because she can play the character. I mean, I didn't even know if she could act at the time. I honestly didn't. And, it wasn't, that's the thing, is it wasn't about so much with the performance. Because if you have the talent at editing, if you're a decent editor, which I hope I am, I think I am, you can make something out of almost nothing as long as you have enough to work with. So that was kind of the way that I was coming at this. I was like, I'll get the best performances I can out of these people, and I will create a movie out of mood and editing. And that will be how it comes out, and it you can kind of tell that was done, that it was almost like fixed when you're watching it. But there's a lot of stuff in it that doesn't come off that way. So, I'm pretty happy with that. But, yeah. So finally we got a sister involved, and she played the role in the last movie and fixed that. And thank God. I mean, I had teasers out on the internet. I was doing a teaser for each little short in the movie, just a little tidbit, like a little teaser trailer kind of thing. And I had footage out there of the original actress and everything, and then I had to like pull it because we recast and we had a new actress playing the role in the last story. So that was a crazy little story right there. But yeah. And the wraparound story that got so crazy, I said the ending got a little weird. The ending changed so much because we had a scripted ending that was supposed to end a certain way, and then we had a hard time getting one of the actors back. So I started thinking, well, what can I do with this? I had an ending that was so abrupt. I'm like, I can't. And a lot of people who have seen Hometown will go, the ending is just crazy and psychedelic and screwed up and weird. And it's like, it's because I literally I shot a bunch of weird, creepy, strange stuff and put it all together and tried to make this like kind of avant-garde, crazy, weird, creepy ending. And I figured because there's a lot of satanic imagery in it, because I just thought it was creepy. But I figured if it ended on such a weird, dark note, that even if the people didn't understand it, if they were paying attention to it, it would be so kind of off-putting that they would actually, that they would still be like, okay, it would take them aback a little bit and it would creep them out. And I think just to that point, it actually achieves that. But then basically, okay, let me go back now, see where I am. I'm losing my train of thought. I'm kind of all over the map probably, but so basically, it took about a year to film this movie. And the reason why I'm doing this podcast now, it's kind of like an anniversary. Literally, this is around the time we started shooting it. So it's like 3 years to the day we started shooting Hometown. And we've already made another movie, and we're working on a third. Well, it's in pre-production stages right now, and that's getting a little crazy too, because scheduling's getting a little tricky on that one as well. But it will happen. I think we're almost allowing ourselves a little bit of a break too, because the schedule gets kind of hectic and it gets a little tricky to deal with. And you're dealing with people's lives and their jobs and all that kind of stuff, and nobody got paid. And I mean, I know a lot of people say, well, pay your cast, pay your crew. I mean, if you don't have any money to pay anybody, you can't pay anybody. And if you want to do this, you can't just, I don't think you should just not do it. I think you should still try to find a way to do it. So, yeah, so Hometown got made. It took a year, went through the whole process, and I'm happy with it. I'm proud of what we did. We played film festival. Was it more than one? No, we played at one film festival, the Rock and Shock Film Festival. And the capper to this story was 2 years, basically to the day, that I originally met this person, this kind of weird dude that I was going to make the other movie with before I started Hometown. We screened it at Rock and Shock. Screened to barely anybody, but we screened. I think one guy stayed and watched the whole movie, but we were still there. We were on the bill. We got our festival wings and stuff like that. And they had a table where you could sell your merchandise and just sign stuff if people were interested. It wasn't a big deal, really. It was, they had a table. And so we manned the table for a little while, me and my wife. And who comes up to me but this guy that I had made the movie with, because he lives in that area. And I was like so nervous to run into him. I'm like, oh God, I don't want to deal with this person. And basically came up to me and told me that, he realized that maybe he had handled things a little bit weird, but, he wasn't too happy about the way that I handled it either. But whatever. We talked it over and, said, let bygones be bygones. But then he wanted to be a part of my next movie. And I just, honestly, it wouldn't have worked anyway because he lives so far away. So that wasn't actually a problem, because this was like a 2-hour drive and I was going to be filming this movie up in Worcester. This 2-hour drive for me. And it was just, my car would have died. It just wasn't going to happen. So I explained that to him, and I as nicely as I possibly could. He kind of kept pushing it, but he let up a little bit, and then he left. But he told me that because he lived with his mom, and he said that she had basically told him that he made a mistake by not, by kind of pushing me away. She's like, that guy could have been the one that you actually would have done something with. And look, we've gone on to make a couple movies since then, so go figure. But, honestly, looking back on the whole thing, looking back on the entire process of Hometown and whatnot, I'm very proud of what I did. And I'm glad that it happened. It's not easy, though. I mean, this is not an easy process. I mean, you're going to have many sleepless nights. It's hard. On this level, it's really, really hard, but it can be done. You don't need permits. You don't need insurance. You don't need all that stuff. All you need is a camera, some editing equipment, and some people and friends or local actors willing to work with you. That's all you need to do this. And I mean, I've proved it that it can be done. Yeah, maybe you're never gonna, make the big movie. Maybe you will. Who knows? But it doesn't change the fact that, I mean, if you want to do it, if you love it, if you have the drive to do it, you will do it. You can do it. It can be done. So honestly, I mean, not really sure what I'm running at, what I'm looking at here. Oh, wow. Okay, cool. Awesome. I did not know how much time I had actually been talking for, because I'm just sitting here blabbing away, but we're getting close to an hour, so this is good. I guess I'm going to close out this podcast because I'm not sure there's much less left to say, other than I don't think there's any stories left. But I really wanted to kind of purge that section of my life, and looking back on it, I'm very proud of it, and I think it's a huge stepping stone for what I've been doing, just all this creative stuff, just trying to do it. And I mean, music. I mean, I'm a musician, so I record my own music. I mean, it's just, there's so many ways to get something done on this level if you've got the drive and a couple of bucks. I mean, you don't need a ton of money. Our budget for Hometown was about $3,000, and that's including the computer, the camera, which is like the whole budget, because nothing else really costs us. Fake blood doesn't cost anything. It's super cheap to go out and buy fake blood. So honestly, I say if you got the drive and you want to do it, do it. Be willing to compromise, though. The biggest thing is you be willing to compromise your vision, be willing to rewrite, be willing to change things here and there if you feel you can't afford to do it, or you lose an act, or write out actors. I mean, I did that so much in Hometown. There are characters that were completely written out and their dialogue was added to other characters, but it's still there. The story is still there. Another little tidbit before I close this out. The first story in the movie, we had this whole sequence that was supposed to take place with, like, the main character was this father who was killing people in his basement or whatever, and he had a confrontation with his daughter. But the guy we had playing the actor, he couldn't really act very well, and he didn't really, he was doing it because he was a friend, and he has like a lot of problems with his legs and stuff like that, and he couldn't stand up and move around too much. And this was going to be kind of a physical part. He was going to have to lie on the floor, fall down, do all kinds of stuff. So what ended up happening is we got another friend that was there that day. We had him put on that guy's clothes, and we literally had the character show up with a mask on his face, so you couldn't tell it wasn't the same person. And I had him record his dialogue, and I pieced the whole thing together. And honestly, most people can't even tell. I have to point it out. The only way you can tell is by the tattoos on the arms of the characters. They're different if you really pay close attention. But it worked. And I mean, this is the stuff that you learn in guerrilla filmmaking, You learn just to go with the flow. It's like you show up with your plan, but be adaptable. Have a plan, but be adaptable. And don't think you can't do it because you don't have money, you don't have insurance, you don't have locations. You know what? If you've got an apartment, a few friends, and a couple bucks and a camera and some editing software, you can make a movie. Just, write to your strengths, write to what you have, write for the apartment, write for the people you know. That's how you do it. Or if you have a script that you had written, adapt it, scale it down, adapt it for that environment. Because then people will watch the movie and they won't say, well, it looks like they wanted to do more with this. No, they'll look at it and they'll go, oh, well, they made what they wrote. Looks like this is what they wrote. This is the movie. It doesn't look like it needed to be more because these are the stories. So yeah, keep it simple. But okay, I think that's all for my revisit of Hometown today. But I'm just really proud of it, and I've been looking back on it a lot lately, and I felt there was some lessons to be learned on an indie filmmaking level. So this is a slightly different episode of the Video Village podcast, but we'll be back next month with a super review episode where I'm gonna have a lot of stuff to review, and I think there isn't even gonna be like a topic to that episode. It's just gonna be like a Blu-ray like a review episode. So that ought to be kind of fun. And like I said, now there probably is going to be an episode at the beginning of the month because I don't think I have anything on tap. If something comes up, then maybe I'll have one. But I as of right now, it's not going to be there. So the next episode will be the middle of next month, around the 15th or so, around the 15th. But yeah, thanks for listening, and for everyone out there who listens to this, I really appreciate the fact that you even give a crap about what I have to say, because it makes it feel like it makes it worth talking, because I know somebody out there is listening, and I hope they're appreciating what I have to say, and it seems like they enjoy it, at least that you guys enjoy it. So, all right, and I guess that's it for this episode of Video Village, and long live Hometown. And if you haven't seen it, look it up. You can rent it online now. You can go to Roadkill Entertainment, jbyrne75.wix.com/Roadkill Entertainment. /Roadkill Entertainment. jbyrne75.wix.com/Roadkill Entertainment. And there's information there about how you can rent it online. You can purchase it from us. That, and You Better Watch Out, and some of my older stuff is still available. But we're doing this deal now through a company called VHX, where it's like a VOD. You can rent it online and watch it online, which is pretty cool. And I set it up myself, and they don't have like a Roku app or anything like that. Unfortunately, you can't watch it on TV unless you have like a browser on your television set. Then you could. But yeah, so check this stuff out if you're interested. I really, I welcome comments. Write to us, let us know. I mean, we want to know what people think about it. I'm going to continue with this, and I know my buddy Mike is going to continue with it with me, and we're working on our next project now. So, okay, well, that's the end of this episode of Video Village. I probably rambled on and on and on and repeated myself over and over again, but thanks for listening, and see you next time.